So, this episode of Game of Thrones is the pivotal 9th episode of the show, which means all the action happens in this episode. You know, all the crazy stuff happens in this episode. And of course, last year, things like the Red Wedding happened. And the question is, was this episode as crazy as the Red Wedding? Let's find out. Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 9, The Watchers on the Wall. And holy shit, guys, this was by far the craziest episode of Game of Thrones I think I've ever seen. It was so crazy. There was so much action in this episode. It was really, really awesome. By far the best episode of the season. I absolutely love this episode. Was it as good as Reigns of Castamere? I mean, yeah, it was actually 10 times better than Reigns of Castamere because, you know, I loved Reigns of Castamere, but this episode was just like, it was just a more graphic, and I liked it more than, I don't know, I just really, really enjoyed this episode. So let's just get to this episode. So this episode mainly focuses on the Wall. It's the big attack of Westeros versus Jon Snow and his men. It's basically Ygritte versus Jon Snow. That's who this battle is. So we see a fire burning on the top of the wall, and we see a fat Aladdin Sam. He's asking Jon what it was like to have sex with Ygritte. And Sam has never actually slept with Gilly. Even the scholar points out that their vow does not explicitly forbid sex, and Jon tells Sam to get some rest. So I thought that was kind of a funny scene overall. Around the wildling campfire, Tormund starts to tell the story of having sex with a bear, and Ygritte has no patience for this as she makes arrows. Styr the Magnar taunts her about still having feelings for her crow, Jon Snow, which is true. She does still have feelings for him, and I think that's kind of what this is. She does still have feelings for him, and she gets in his face, vows that she and no other wildling will be the one to kill him. So definitely she does still have feelings for him. She said it right there with that quote. She definitely still has feelings for him. Overall, the beginning of this episode was kind of boring. I'll say that. The first 16 minutes of the episode are kind of boring, but then it really picks up at the end. So Master Aemon tells Sam in the library at Castle Black, and Sam is scared for Gilly, and Aemon observes that neither Jon nor Sam listened when he told them that love is the death of duty. That's a pretty interesting thing. So Aemon says that he was in love once when he was still Aemon Targaryen, and nothing makes the past a sweeter place to visit than the prospect of imminent death, and he sighs cheerfully. And then we see Sam go outside and he hears Gilly. And I actually really like Sam and Gilly in this episode. I think this was the first episode where I cared about Sam and Gilly. I said this, guys, to you. I said this to you before. I have not given 2 fucks about Sam and Gilly the whole season. Not 2 fucks. But this episode, I really cared about them, and I thought they did a good job with them. Because Sam goes outside and hears Gilly crying by the gate, and he demands that Prip let them in. And Sam says, from now on, wherever you go, I go to. And he promises her, and it's really sweet. So above them, the horn begins to blow, which means the war is starting. We then see the wall. The Thenns Warg awakens from his trance, and he says, it's time. And he says, Ygritte, Tormund, and the rest of their band begin to run at Castle Black. Jon races to the edge of the wall and sees that the forest has been lit on fire, because they need to protect the wall. Because if they don't protect the wall, they're going to lose. They know that. They know that they have to protect the wall. They know that they're after the wall, and if they lose the wall, then they're doomed. I mean, if they lose that wall, it's not going to be good for them in the end. So they can't lose that wall, obviously. So it's very imperative that they don't lose the wall. So Jon races to the edge of the wall and sees that the forest has been lit on fire. And then we see Alicent Thorne watch grimly as the men loads barrels of oil to the edge of the wall, and he admits to Jon that they should have sealed the tunnel, and Thorne says this is not the end. He and Jon will definitely continue to hate each other past this night. And then we see a very touching scene with Sam and Gilly. Sam hides Gilly in Castle Black and insisting that he can't leave his brother. He does not want her to get hurt or anything. Sorry, I'm trying to see who's calling. Okay. He doesn't care. He cares, completely about her safety. That's what this is all about. It's all about her safety. He doesn't want her to get hurt. And, as much as she wants to be with him, she says, he can't leave his brothers. He must keep his promise to defend the wall. And he kisses Gilly. And she says, just promise me you won't die. I know you have to stay with your brothers, but I just need to know, please, you have to promise me you won't die. And, he gives her his promise. And it's a very, very sweet scene. I thought that was a very sweet scene. And overall, I thought that was just a really, really well done scene. I really enjoyed that overall. So yeah, he gives her his promise. So the wildlings and mammoths and giants, so then we see and here is where the real, shit hits the fan here. So the wildling army approaches the wall from the north, complete with giants and mammoths from the south. Ygritte's band of wildlings pick off Night's Watchmen and begin to storm Castle Black. Then we see Alliser Thorne, who gives a command to the top of the wall to Janos Slynt. Now, Alliser is basically leading the wall, and Slynt is the people that are the wildlings. Janos Slynt arrives with the news that wildlings are approaching from the south, and Thorne then gives a speech in the courtyard, and he says, when the sun rises, I promise you Castle Black will stand, and he thinks that they have a very good chance of winning, so that was a very good scene. Then on top of the wall, we see Slynt continue to insist that there's no such thing as giants, and the giants are literally right there. I found that kind of funny, because the giants are literally right there, and that the wildlings do not pose a threat. And Gren tells him he is needed below, and Slynt scurries away. Jon takes control of the wall, and the wildlings from the north have begun to scale the wall, defended by giants firing massive arrows, which it's pretty awesome here. I mean, that scene with the giants, it wasn't CGI. It wasn't CGI. That's awesome. I love it when Game of Thrones does practical effects. I love it when a show can do practical effects over CGI. It's just so much better in my opinion. I think they did a really, really great job with that. And overall, I really enjoyed them choosing not to do CGI. I thought it was actually a very good move that they did that. I just thought that was a very good move. I overall really enjoyed that. And then we see Ollie, that is the kid whose dad was killed by Ygritte. And then the Thenns actually ate his village, and they watches as the Thenns and Ygritte invade Castle Black. They make it into the castle courtyard, and Slynt hides like a coward and idiot, but he finds Gilly in his hiding place. And Pip and Sam fire in the courtyard, but Ygritte shoots Pip through the throat, and Sam holds him as he dies. So that's kind of sad, though, unfortunately. So Pip is dead, unfortunately. I mean, I really don't care, but yeah, so Pip is dead. So Jon, Gren, and Dolorous Edd drop barrels on the hordes approaching from the north, and another giant dismounts from his mammoth and hooks the tunnel gate to the massive beast, preparing to tear it off. Jon then orders Gren to go below and hold the inner gate. Gren swears it will hold, and below, Alliser races to protect the gate as well, but finds Tormund in his way. The wildlings tosses Thorne to the courtyard, but Thorne continues to below as at the men to protect the gate. So then Sam shoots a Thenn in the head, and as Gren rushes past, Sam says they need more men in the courtyard. Gren tells him to complain to Jon, so Sam goes above and is like, help, 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 and he's literally just screaming help, and Jon is like, oh, and Jon basically says, oh yeah, okay. He then gives Edd command of the wall, and runs down to the courtyard with his friends. So, I mean, it's, as I said, really, really intense here. Really love the background music in this episode as well. Very good score, I must say. Really made the episode more epic. On top of the wall, the men are dropping flaming barrels, which makes the mammoth flee, and they shoot one giant, which enrages the other, and he begins to force to open the gate. And they're trying to open the gate, and the giants are breaking through the outer gate. Gren and the others recite the vow of the Night's Watch as the massive creature races towards them. So Jon fights his way down to the courtyard, which is pure carnage because it's just they have to protect this wall. As I said, that's what matters to them. So Tormund and the Thenns are making me of the Night's Watch. Sam goes. Tormund is shot, but keeps fighting. Styr the Magnar heads for Jon, and the two begin to fight and head toward, then killing all the way. Jon drops his sword, and the Thenn starts to beat him to a pulp by the forge until Jon brains him with a hammer. And it's really that's really bloody and staggering. Jon then turns to see Ygritte holding him at arrow point. It looks like Ygritte's about to shoot him. Jon almost smiles at her, and they say I'm frozen in a private moment that is shattered. And, you can kind of see that, she's about to shoot him. It looks like they're sort of, like, reconnecting. But then Ollie shoots her in the back. How do I feel about Ygritte dying? Honestly, I did not like her character this season. I felt like, one, we didn't see a lot of her character. We didn't. So I really didn't care too much about her character this season. I cared about her last season. I felt bad for her. But here is just, oh my god, the scene was so well done. I love this. Because Jon holds Ygritte, and he's promising that they will go, he says, remember the cave, remember that cave we met in, because that's where they met, if you remember, they met in a cave, and they then, had sex, and everything, and they met in that cave, and he says, remember the cave beyond the wall, that's where we're going, and then she says, you know nothing, Jon Snow, and that's how she dies, and it's so touching, because you really see, they did have a genuine love for each other, you really do see that, and I really thought they did a great job with showing that, because it showed that even though, basically this all was started by Ygritte, because, she was the one who, was pissed off by Jon, so she's initially the one that started all this, and, that's kind of what ends all of this, because her dying makes him realize, what are we really doing here, because as Dolorous Edd miraculously gets control of the situation on top of the wall, Jon Snow wearily approaches Tormund, the huge man who is feathered with arrows but still fighting, and when Jon orders him chained, Tormund bellows, and he says, I shall have thrown you from the top of the wall, boy, and Jon says, sadly, aye, you should have. So the war is now, the battle is now over. And I will say this, that battle was hands down the most graphic scene we've had on Game of Thrones ever. It was like a 20-minute scene, very, very well done. I commend everyone on that, in the battle, very well done. So Sam, he promised to go back to Gilly, and that's what he does. He goes back to Gilly, who has survived, though she has done some damage to Janos Slynt, but literally nobody, really no one cares, so it doesn't matter. But the thing is, I'm happy that they're back together and everything. I really did appreciate Sam and Gilly in this episode. What I like was that they showed Ygritte and Jon, and then they showed Sam and Gilly, and it's kind of like Sam and Gilly true love, Jon Snow and Ygritte true love. I don't know. I kind of thought that. The rest of the episode, the last 5 minutes focused on Jon and Sam. They have surveyed the damage to Castle Black, and Sam thinks they've won. But it turns out they actually have not won. The battle's not over yet, because Jon says that Mance has 100,000 more wildlings and giants and mammoths, and Jon tells Sam he's going out to find Mance and tear him and kill him to tear apart the loosely bound wildling army. It's a really bad plan, but at this point there's really no other option. They have to do that. So he has to do that, because the thing is, he wants to, of course, kill the man that killed Ygritte, because he's really upset that she died, obviously. So, he's upset with that, obviously, so that's a pretty big thing. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. And as Jon and Sam walk through the gate, they find the corpse of the giant surrounded by Grenn and his men. They held the gate, Jon says, and tells Sam to have the bodies burned. Jon then gives Sam Longclaw so he will not lose it again. And as the gate rises on the bleak north, Sam looks at his friend. And Jon just says, Sam, come back. And that's how the episode ended. So, yeah, they have now opened the gate. They've now, the gate has rise, and basically now Sam has to find, Jon now has to find Mance, and I think Jon's definitely going to do some damage to Mance. We're going to see what happens there, but I definitely think there's a big battle coming. Now, let's get to next week. Next week is the finale, and I have a feeling the finale is going to be bigger than this episode, because this episode focused on just the wildlings. There's a lot more going on, though, besides that. Of course, the Stark reunion, I think, is coming up next week, because we saw, literally in the promo, we saw every single one of the Starks. I think there's going to be a Stark reunion next week. 2, we are going to have to see what happens with Tyrion. Of course, Tyrion is going to be, as I said, he is on trial for what he did. Of course, he was sentenced to death. He's sentenced to death, so we're going to see what happens with that. As far as Cersei, we're going to see what happens with, her and the whole Sansa thing. We'll have to see what happens with that. Overall, though, this episode was amazing. As I said, next week's the finale. There's a lot to talk about. I'm probably going to do a separate video about that. I do think I know who's probably going to die next week. I think there weren't too many major characters that died this week. Only Ygritte died. It wasn't as big as the Red Wedding, I'll say that. However, it was definitely the best episode of the season and definitely the craziest episode of the show because it was just constant combat throughout a lot of the episode. And it was really awesome to watch, honestly. I thought it was awesome. But this episode, as I said, was amazing. Hands down, best episode of the season. Absolutely loved it. Loved a lot of the action in this episode. Action-packed. Really, really enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. Was this as good as The Red Wedding? Did you guys think it was a good follow-up to The Red Wedding? Overall, I thought it was a good follow-up to The Red Wedding. Nothing too, huge or anything. I mean, yes, it definitely was huge, but it wasn't as big as The Red Wedding. But it definitely, I thought, was better, a little bit better than The Red Wedding. Because the episode of Reigns of Castamere, I thought the beginning was boring. I'll admit that right now. The beginning of Reigns of Castamere was boring. What will happen with the whole thing with John? Will he find Manson? Is he gonna kill him? We'll have to see what happens there. Sam obviously doesn't think it's a good plan, so do you think that Sam is going to die? Because Gilly said to Sam, come back, make sure you're alive. And I'm just wondering, do you think that Sam's going to die? I really don't know. I think Sam might die. I don't really know. Do you think Jon Snow's going to die next week? I don't know. Next week's episode apparently is the longest episode of the show. It's actually going to be 66 minutes long. So clearly there's going to be a lot that happens in it. I'm looking forward to next week's episode. We'll have to see what happens. But that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for the season finale of Turn. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.